Hello, I'm Terrence McNally, and welcome to today's podcast. I'll be talking with longtime anti-nuke activist Harvey Wasserman about where things stand today in terms of nuclear power. What's going on in the U.S.? Are new plants being built? Are old ones shutting down? We'll get an update on Fukushima. And finally, we'll address the temporary shutdown at San Onofre near San Diego and the opportunity that currently presents itself to shut it down permanently. On Freeform, we explore the lives, the work, the ideas of individuals that I suspect have pieces of the puzzle of a world that just might work. We look at new, innovative, and provocative approaches to business, environment, health, science, politics, media, culture, all based on the fact that I believe we can do better, and I want to find out how. Harvey Wasserman is a teacher, author, and activist focusing primarily on election protection and nuclear power. With Bob Fitrakis, Harvey helped break many of the major stories surrounding the 2004 presidential election in Ohio. In 1973, going back a few decades, Wasserman helped pioneer the global grassroots movement against atomic reactors, and he was an organizer of 1979's No Nukes concerts featuring Bruce Springsteen, Bonnie Raitt, Jackson Browne, Crosby, Stills, Nash, James Taylor, and others. He edits the nukefree.org, that's nukefree, N-U-K-E, F-R-E-E, nukefree.org website, and he's senior editor of freepress.org. Wasserman is also author or co-author of a dozen books, including What Happened in Ohio, co-authored with Bob Fitrakis and Steve Rosenfeld, Harvey Wasserman's History of the U.S., and Solartopia, Our Green-Powered Earth, A.D. 2030. Welcome again, Harvey, to Pacific and Free Forum. First, on this show, I always like people to get a feel for the people besides their issues. So if you would, Harvey Wasserman, take us back to the late 70s or the mid-70s, and what leads you to get involved in the issue of nuclear power?
Well, I was living on a communal farm, the very famous Liberation News Service farm that was just started out of the Liberation News Service from the anti-war movement. And we were into peace, civil rights, drug, sex, and rock and roll. And organic food, actually. We helped pioneer the organic food growing. Our commune started in 1968. And then we were peacefully moving along, smoking medical marijuana and doing all that great stuff. And in 1973, the local utility came in and said they were going to build a nuclear plant 4 miles from our house. We were all thrilled. We said, we're going to kick these guys' butts, and we did. I actually typed out No Nukes for the first time, put it in the local paper, and we stopped them. Where they wanted to build the nuclear plant in Montague, Massachusetts is now a nature conservancy. You can lay down on the ground there where there would have been 2 horrific reactors and just look at the sky and listen to the river. So I've been doing that ever since. This is my 40th year fighting nuclear power. I'm waiting for my gold watch. And we have 100. When we first started, Richard Nixon said there'd be 1,000 reactors in the U.S. by the year 2000. In the year 2000, there were 104. And that lower number is really largely due to the anti-nuclear movement. It's one of the most successful social movements and successfully nonviolent social movements in the history of the world.
Absolutely.
And now we have these 2 reactors at San Onofre, and we're desperate. We haven't shut any reactors for a while. And what we want to do is, all these reactors are really old. There's only 1 reactor in the United States that's opened in the 90s. All the rest are in the 80s, 70s, and 60s.
Right. So the upside is we've kept new ones from opening. The downside, if you will, is that all the ones that are open are really old.
Oh, really bad. And they're getting worse. This industry has a reverse learning curve. For example, at San Onofre, it's hard to say this. These guys have been in the business 50 years.
Longer than you.
Yes. Yeah. They predate me, amazingly enough. And They wanted to, Southern California Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric wanted to upgrade the steam generators at San Onofre. And so they spent hundreds of millions of dollars. And they completely screwed it up. And they did such a bad job with Mitsubishi as the contractor that they can't reopen these reactors. They're incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, and there's lots of details in that one. But again, I do want to talk before we'll focus on San Onofre but I do want to talk a little bit about Fukushima and just get a general update. Okay, but one of the things I do know is that with as I said, that system down at San Onofre, they've just hit every unanticipated kind of thing they could and so on. And obviously, that's a drag when you're dealing with remodeling your bathroom. but it's kind of a big deal when it's a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, and let's ask our listeners here, how many of you out there are driving cars that are 30 or 40 years old? I mean, I drive a 1991 Volvo, and they don't get much older than that. But still, these reactors opened, way before that, and all around the country. And San Onofre is part of a bigger picture here. For example, at Crystal River, Florida, they went in and to fix the containment dome, and they wound up poking 3 additional holes in the thing, for God's sakes. I mean, at Davis-Besse in Ohio, they had boric acid leak and eat a hole almost all the way through the reactor pressure vessel, which would have caused a gargantuan catastrophe.
Wow.
We've had now one in Nebraska that was flooded.
During the floods?
Yes, during the 100-year flood. It was the second 100-year flood in, 2 years?
Yeah.
And then the ones in Virginia were hit by earthquakes that exceeded the design specifications.
Sure, because West Virginia doesn't plan for earthquakes that much.
And it gets worse.
You're talking here about some of the errors that have been made recently. What is the current situation with nuclear power globally and in the U.S.? In other words, as we attempt to cut carbon emissions to deal with climate change, there are those who have been advocating for a nuclear renaissance. And I just wanted to get, what is the current sort of status abroad and here?
Well, let's start with Fukushima, which you asked for initially. At Fukushima, we've got
because in some sense it's a big player in your answer to this other question.
I mean, because of Fukushima, 52 of the 54 reactors in Japan are shut. I mean, and here Japan is still sailing along. They haven't had blackouts or anything like that, but all but 2 reactors in Japan are shut. And but we have it at Unit 4, which did not explode. For years we were told nuclear power plants could not explode. We had at least 3 explosions at Fukushima, one of which may have been fission. We're not sure. If you look at the pictures, it looks like an atomic explosion to a certain extent. The others were definitely hydrogen. So as a result of these explosions, we have the spent fuel pool at Unit 4 sitting 100 feet in the air. That's the design, is to put them 100 feet in the air. These are GE designs, American designs. And God forbid another earthquake hits, that spent fuel pool could come crashing to the ground. Those fuel rods would be exposed to air. They would burn, and the radiation releases would be apocalyptic. It would be just catastrophic. And so everybody who knows about nuclear power is on tenterhooks about Fukushima, because even though the accident happened a long time ago, relatively speaking, almost 2 years, the danger is as bad as ever.
That's what I was going to ask you. So, to some extent, we all pay attention for a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, something like that. Now, a couple of years later, what is the reality that we're not hearing about of the potential dangers or consequences of Fukushima?
All it would take is a serious quake there. And people have to remember the quake that destroyed Fukushima was a 9.0, which is huge, but it was over 100 miles away from the plant. Here in California, you have Diablo Canyon and San Onofre both within a mile or two of fault lines that could, in fact, deliver a 9.0. So we are really on tenterhooks here. You have 4 reactors in California that are on earthquake and tsunami zones. And,
that's Diablo Canyon.
2 at Diablo Canyon
near
and
San
2 at
Luis
San
Obispo.
Onofre.
It's San Onofre that we've been talking about. What are the other 2?
No, the two reactors at San Onofre, and 2 reactors
got it.
at
Okay,
Diablo
so 4
Canyon.
reactors. Got it.
And Diablo, of course, I spent 3 lovely nights in the county jail, the only Michelin-rated county jail in California in 1984, so highly recommended. But thankfully, the 2 at San Onofre are shut, and we want them permanently down. So the state of the industry in the world is in deep decline. Number four economy in the world. The Germans are not known for their frivolity. Have decided to make the transfer to a green-powered economy. Everybody warned, all the so-called experts warned, the Fox bloviators, that Germany would be priced out, skyrocketing energy costs, and steep decline in supply, and the exact opposite has happened. Now, in the United States, there are 4 reactors more or less under construction. I am 100% convinced they will never be finished. The economics are killing them. What's killing the industry to a certain extent is fracking, because natural gas has dropped so far in price. We now have a number of older reactors that are going to shut because they can't compete. Even the older reactors, which have been totally amortized, the Kewaunee reactor in Wisconsin will shut for economic reasons. I just read, and I post these articles at nukefree.org for people who want to stay current, nukefree.org. I've read that the Vermont Yankee plant, which has been attacked, hugely by the state of Vermont, it may shut for economic reasons. Even these old reactors where, allegedly they run cheap and all that stuff, they just can't cut it anymore. And that will be true of San Onofre. The cost analysis done on San Onofre will, I'm 100% sure, show that it does not pay to reopen it, except that the utilities want to reopen it so they can recoup the money from the ratepayers.
They always talk about their sunk costs.
Right.
The costs. And now one thing about San Onofre, I want to...
Please.
Couple of points before we get to San Onofre in depth. But one of the things I know about that is they have been charging their ratepayers as if the plants were open while they've been closed.
That's
this is now 10 months, right?
Yes. Almost a full year.
Really?
Yeah, and the point is that this is one of the rare instances where where local citizens can affect the state government, and because usually, since the 1954 Atomic Energy Act, the regulatory power on nuclear power has been with the feds. But in this case, because it's a money issue, we do have clout with the Public Utilities Commission. The Public Utilities Commission of CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, could make decisions that would prevent San Onofre from reopening. And and this is going on all over the country. These companies don't want to shut these old reactors because they're sticking it to the ratepayers. It has nothing to do with energy supply.
I got it.
Nothing to do with global warming.
A lot of them put in very bad deals for their ratepayers to pay for this nuclear power that was going to be just this wonderful panacea.
Exactly.
And so that's like a subsidy to the utility companies that whether they're making money or not, they'll have to drop their rates if they drop these out because those deals will go dead. This is Free Forum. I'm Terrence McNally. I'm speaking with Harvey Wasserman. We're talking about nuclear power, and we're going to get specifically into talking about San Onofre. You can learn more at harveywasserman.com. Will that link them to Nuke
No,
Free?
nukefree.org. You should go to nukefree.org, nukefree.org. And there's a very good site locally on San Onofre. We'll talk about San Onofre safety, and another one's A4NR.
And another one, decommissionsanonofre.com.
Yes, correct. There are a lot of people working on this.
Okay. One last thing about Fukushima. What sorts, to listeners here in Los Angeles, what sorts of levels of radiation are we dealing with on the West Coast or in Hawaii as a result of Fukushima? Do we know?
No, we don't know really, but because the government stopped monitoring it. But the only time I broke down and cried on the radio was when Fukushima was happening and radiation was coming here, and my grandson had just been born. Or was in the process of being born, and I have a son and daughter, and
so that combination of things
in the valley here, and it's devastating, and so we're not getting a full story. It's very hard to get radiation readings because the government doesn't like to do it, and we do have private individuals who try.
What do you think of radiationnetwork.com?
Good, yeah, good. It's there. It's important, and
so that's a website that is independent, correct?
Correct.
It collects information wherever it can. It can't attest to the accuracy of all the information it has, but it basically shows you radiation levels all over the country, at least, and maybe the world.
And President Obama got on the air within a week of Fukushima and assured the American public that the radiation coming from Fukushima wouldn't get here and wouldn't be harmful. It's completely wrong and totally irresponsible of him. And the EPA or whoever it is stopped monitoring radiation in fish, as a result of which I've stopped eating salmon. And, it's not cool. I mean,
okay, that was going to be my next question was more dangerous in Hawaii than here, more dangerous in the water than the air. How about the fish?
Yeah, the fish are not, it's not good.
So you don't want fish that might come from the Pacific.
You got to be careful. You got to be wary of it. They don't do the monitoring that should be done. I stopped eating fish because I was only eating wild-caught salmon, and that's it. It's gone. So the radiation from Fukushima has been catastrophic, and it continues to pour into the ocean. Less airborne radiation than at Chernobyl, but certainly way more waterborne radiation, and it just never goes away, and you don't know what the long-term effects are.
Any difference between the north and western hemisphere? North and southern hemisphere?
Yeah, some. It's worse in the north.
Worse in the north.
Yeah, definitely. But all the big TMI, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and now Fukushima have all been in the northern hemisphere. And after Chernobyl, radiation was monitored in California within 8 days. We did have a major bird death in the Point Reyes station. There was a ranger who was monitoring bird births, had monitored for 10 years, actually. And then this cloud came down in a rainstorm in April of '86, and the bird births dropped 60%.
This is following Chernobyl.
Right after Chernobyl. And
which
of course,
is half a world away.
Right, and the government did the logical thing, which got rid of the ranger. So, you know.
He was obviously the problem.
Yeah, he was the problem, right. And we monitored radiation from Chernobyl all across the northern tier of the United States, and it was also measured coming from Fukushima.
Yeah.
These are enormous quantities of radiation, Terry.
Let's shift to San Onofre then. What brought on the latest crisis?
Well, the geniuses who run these utility companies, only 50 years in the business, decided to upgrade their steam generators, which is kind of like changing out the radiator in your car in a certain sense, and which you should do on old Volvos, by the way, as I learned the hard way. But nonetheless, they got Mitsubishi, who's also been in the business from the get-go, and they completely screwed it up. They didn't put in certain spacing devices between the tubes, and within a very short period of time, the tubes have started to poke, started to have pinhole leaks. Radiation was escaping.
So these problems with the tubes, which is one of the big problems, is since the redesign, so it wasn't a problem.
Well, there were
problems.
Existing. There are always problems with steam generators.
But it was from this repair.
You have to remember you have extremely, extremely hot radioactive water being funneled through tubes on a regular basis, and the tubes thin. In other words, the wear and tear makes them thinner. But in this case, the thinning and the leaks came really quickly. And they were.
Yeah, I mean, I have a quote from. I got this one paper. If you go to the Sierra Club Angeles chapter, I think they have a paper 12 big failures of San Onofre. I'm just saying that to the public. But one of the things they say is the computer modeling by Mitsubishi failed to predict the behavior of the new steam generators at all.
Right. And one of the things that, I mean, it's like the Keystone Cops here. It'd be funny if it wasn't so dangerous. The tubes start banging against each other. And, all you had to do was put in metal spacers, which they did do in the previous generation, but they thought they could save money, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, but that is part of it. It's these things just
flailing back and forth.
Vibrating like crazy and filling back
you
and
would
forth.
Think they would know.
And thus aging much more quickly than you would ever age any other way. One of the things you mentioned before, the California Public Utilities Commission, the PUC, has a lead role in economic and financial issues, while the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, has the lead role on safety and design. Is this division of authority a problem, or can it work to our benefit?
Well, in this case, it might work to our benefit. The NRC has a new chairwoman, first woman to chair it. She seems to have possibilities, let's put it that way. The last one wasn't bad, actually, Greg Jasko. But they got rid of him, and they brought her in. But the NRC has written a very detailed letter to Southern California Edison, demanding answers to some questions that we think can't be answered. And we hope that the NRC will follow through and make sure that this is done. That it's done properly.
If the questions aren't answered properly, the consequences take place.
Well, one of the wild things is that the Southern California Edison wants to open the reactor. One of the reactors. One of them we think is pretty much dead.
Well, let me just read this. Unit 1 is permanently decommissioned.
Yes, that's gone.
Unit 3 is shut down and cannot operate without extensive repairs. The utility considers only Unit 2 a candidate for restart.
Correct.
Operating a restarted Unit 2, this is again from the Sierra report, operating a restarted Unit 2 under partial power may be impacted negatively by the fact that you're not running the plant the way you used to with all of them, right?
Yes.
That you got compromised situations all around it, and now you're going to open this one reactor.
Well, this is hard to say when you're dealing with a nuclear plant, but in the Unit 2, they want to reopen at 70% capacity and see what happens. Because they don't know what's going to happen.
And they're backing off to 70 means that they're even afraid of what would happen if they reopened at 100.
Yes, and the NRC has asked them in this letter to tell that you have. They're saying you have to get to where you can run at 100%. You can't just open at 70%.
Well, isn't part of that, Harvey, is Harvey Wasserman, I'm Terrence McNally, listen to Free Forum, is that it's originally chartered or licensed, as you will, at 100% capacity.
Correct.
And so if you were going to say, well, we can reopen it, but only at 70, they're going to say your license or your your right to run the thing doesn't allow that, correct?
Well, we'll hope they say that. And, the NRC we've called no real chance or nobody really cares. But, there's a lot of attention on this,
and
especially
that
since
fact
Fukushima.
that them wanting to open at 70 might be an opening for you to say, for the citizens to say, well, if you're going to open at 70, whatever you qualified back at 100 doesn't count, so you got to requalify, and that might help the opportunity to shut it down.
We hope. I mean, because of your show and other shows like this, we've got attention focused on this. But everybody's life is in danger here. This is a 30-year-old machine that's never. These are clunkers,
And it's been made worse by its updating.
Exactly. Well, there is a reverse learning curve, and this is not the only story in this country like this. As I said, when they went into Crystal River 4, they poked 3 more holes in the containment, for God's sakes. I mean, these guys at Indian Point in New York, they continually screwing it up. Oyster Creek in New Jersey, the list goes on, and a very, very dangerous situation.
And then Sierra makes another point. They say that at least one expert analysis concluded that partial operation, in this case Unit 2, would be more expensive than full operation on a per kilowatt hour basis and possibly in total cost. So, and at 70% even more so that whatever their financial situation was before, it's going to be that there's no financial argument for reopening.
There is a magic number somewhere in there. These guys, we have found in the history of nuclear power that you get to a certain number and they will shut them. And, they're going to talk and talk and talk. And then if they get the right number, the next day, suddenly they'll be pushing wind. So, which is what happened in Germany. And because they can make, the decision in Germany, and your guest will point this out, it was corporate. I mean, of course we had a political movement in Germany. Of course people were freaked out about Fukushima, massive demonstrations. But ultimately, the corporations looked at the numbers.
Actually, he says something a little more subtle than that, which is he says that they were already doing a gradual close down, and that Merkel's government reacted and gave this immediate shutdown, which has actually caused some complications to what was working already.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you have to remember, too, that she is a chemist. I mean, she understood.
That's right.
I think she partially, they put out the story. You never know how
actually,
true it is.
I'm sorry to jump in right now, but the American official who probably was the wisest in terms of energy was our nuclear engineer, Jimmy Carter.
Yes, well, sort of. He was a mixed bag, but
I mean, in terms of renewables,
yes, he was. He pushed
saying,
renewables.
It's funny when you put scientists in positions of power. Sometimes that's a good thing.
Well, also Rickover, who built the first reactor in the United States at Shippingport, Pennsylvania, the only one that actually was workable. In many ways, later renounced nuclear power.
Right.
He said
now, one
crazy.
of the big points you were making was about the danger. More than 8 million people live within 50 miles of San Onofre. 9 times the population density of Fukushima.
Right.
So the thing of whatever happened there, we're earthquake prone, we're on the coast,
right?
But only there's 8 million people within 50 miles. Evacuation would be
ridiculous, impossible.
Impossible. Nightmare is too short a word.
And I will tell you that these 2 reactors do have the capacity of permanently irradiating both San Diego and Los Angeles, not to mention the Central Valley. I mean, it's an apocalyptic possibility, and the older these reactors get, the worse they are. And keeping San Onofre shut is absolutely essential to survival.
So what can Californians do to keep these reactors?
Pressure the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which has generally been immune to pressure, but in this case, this is a big deal.
Let's give them the organization websites again.
We have
A4NR.org. What's that stand for?
Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility.
Okay, A4NR.org.
And SanOnofreSafety.org.
Right, so that's
SanOnofreSafety.org.
San Onofre Safety, one word.org. And then this other one that I found that you didn't even mention, decommission SanOnofre.com. Again, good information and very clear what their
and I post ongoing news for the industry as a whole at nukefre.org. If you really want to read what's going on in general with the industry, that's a good place to go. We've been doing this a long time, Terry. We have shut a lot of reactors. We have stopped a lot of reactors. So, the taste of blood is in my mouth here, and we have a really, really good chance of keeping
if you've
these
been listening
shut.
so far, you can hear that there's certain things about the situation right now that actually are in the favor of shutting it down.
Oh, absolutely. 3 major pressure points.
From the NRC, from the PUC, from the financial angle, from the safety angle, from the fact that they say they can't do
Yes.
all the reactors. Even they say they can't do 100% of any reactors. All these things make it a unique opportunity.
Because the pressure on the PUC, the pressure on the NRC, the pressure on the governor now is way, way greater than at any other time. We have these reactors shut. They have to reopen them. It's way, way tougher to reopen a reactor than to do it otherwise. And so we have them on the ropes, really, very, very tightly. Unit 3 is gone, pretty much. Unit 2, if we can win this, it's huge. And what will happen in Southern California is what's happening in Germany, is that renewables will just go crazy here once these 2 reactors are gone.
Okay. To learn more about Harvey's work, you can go to harveywasserman.com or nukefree.org. You can visit me at terrencemcnally.net, TERRENCEMCNALLY, terrencemcnally.net, or A World That Just Might Work. They are the same website, and you can learn more there about shows, guests, podcasts, transcripts, and so on. You can also sign up there to have the podcast delivered to you weekly. You can do that also at iTunes. And you can sign up at my site or by emailing me at temcnally, TEMCNALLY, at mac.com, temcnally at mac.com, to get a weekly email announcement telling you who's going to be on, what we're going to talk about. And you can also check out Freeform with Terrence McNally on Facebook, and you can follow me on Twitter at McNally Terrence. Thank you, Harvey Wasserman.